Hello, hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of We the Light. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. Oh my goodness. Okay. I think I say this before every interview, but I'm actually like a giddy school. This is a different energy today. This is giddy schoolgirl vibes. I'm like, oh my gosh. I cannot wait to talk to this amazing human, this amazing queen woman that is just really doing the work. And we'll talk about this more when we jam in with our amazing guest today, Amanda. But something that I admire about this amazing guest, Amanda, is that she's really doing the work. And, sometimes the industry, it's kind of like, is this person doing the work? Are you in full integrity? And this human is rocking it out, is being an extremely amazing example. And I could go all about why I love her. And I think you're going to fall in love with her in the first 2 seconds. So let's get to it. I want to welcome our amazing guest, Amanda Hanson. She's just killing it. Before we go to the accolade, she is just absolutely killing it. She's living her truth. She is an example of who I want to be. And she's a clinical psychologist, a coach, and a paradigm shifter for women. She helps women empower them, collaborating and I should say, taking out that like queen magic energy. And one of her areas of expertise is really reimagining midlife to reclaim the glory of it, to reclaim the magic and all the nuanced, imperfect beauty. Again, I could go on and be like, I love Amanda for this reason. I love Amanda for this reason. I love it. But I'm like, okay, Erica, just get to the point because let's meet this amazing human. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so psyched to have you here.
Thank you, Erica, for having me and for being open to having this conversation, because I feel like it is such an important conversation that is not being had.
Yes, I so agree. And I know when we talked, in our pre-chat, like, I really appreciate that you go beyond the surface, because I think a lot of what's going on, which is great, thank God we're having the conversation, is queendom and being in our beauty and pleasure, which is so great, but you are actually really holding the truth of that. And you know what I mean? Instead of it being like glossy and Instagrammable, can you talk to us about like, I'm just going to jump right in.
Yes.
Because I know, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So I know a huge piece of what you do is talking. Oh, and I should say before we jump in, a disclaimer for all the listeners. If you do identify as female, thank God, because this is a very queen female conversation, but for all humans, this is an inclusive conversation, whether, you can resonate as king energy or non-binary royalty. Like, I think we might be saying queen and female, but I want everyone to feel included in the conversation. And this, so why I'm so attracted to your work is, yes, it's queendom, but it's also magic. It's also about your power, your pleasure. So I want to make that disclaimer for all, that everyone's welcome to the journey. Everyone's welcome to this conversation. And I want everyone to be part of this conversation because what you're providing is so lit up and juicy and alive. So let's jump into that, like queen, king, non-binary royalty. Like, we see that right now, very big, like step into your royalty, step into your, step into it. And sometimes it could be glossy. Sometimes it could be Instagrammable. It could be like, I'm all about, feeling hot and the surface. But like, how do we actually genuinely, energetically, physically step into that and embody that energy of feeling like a royalty within?
That's such a complex and beautiful question. And there's so many ways we can dissect that and really look at it. But some of the things I will say that kind of are the baseline for this question would be two things. One is that we were born royalty. We were born in perfection, in the most magical, beautiful vessels. And then it was the world and the expectations of the world, whether you were born male or female, that then really early on, sometimes still in utero, at the gender reveal parties, the world already starts putting expectations on who you will be, how you will show up. And then once you enter the world, it is coming from religion, it is coming from culture, family of origin, schools, communities, over and over and over again about what it means to be a boy, a girl. Right. And so then I think the work in stepping into royalty is being able to go back to that piece of ourselves that always knew that we were divine, and stripping away all the ways in which society has put expectation that then feels like a burden onto you. And we end up, by the time people get to me, they are feeling such a heavy load. They are carrying so much identity that isn't actually even theirs, that they didn't even want to take on, but they were told by other people that this was the way to be loved and accepted. And because that is our number one thing we are seeking, is love and acceptance in community, in tribe, we start to morph and become these creatures that eventually we look in the mirror and we're unidentifiable to ourselves because we are living with so much expectation. So getting to royalty then is about starting to ask yourself the questions of, do I actually believe this piece about myself? So an example to make it really, really crystal clear, an example for me would be, as a woman approaching 50, I'm living in a very consumeristic world, in a world that values the youthfulness of a woman's face and body. So if I pay attention to the cultural messaging that says, no one is interested in looking at you, Amanda, at 50 without Botox and with gray hair, then you can imagine what I'm going to do with that information. I'm going to run to mute those parts of myself, to disguise those parts of myself, to hide those parts of myself, because I've received the message those parts aren't worthy. So when I do that, I get further and further away from my own authentic divinity. I start to have layer upon layer between who I really am and what the world tells me I need to be. So what happens by the time, women in particular that I work with come to me, they have put so many layers on, so many masks, so many disguises, so many expectations they're carrying, that they are depressed, they're anxious, they don't even understand the point of life. And the reason they can't access the point of life is because they're not living from their most core sourced place. They are living from all of these outside expectations that have been put on them. So the work with me is really about unpeeling all of that and getting to, who are you? If you lived on the most remote island in the world and none of this other stuff happened, what matters most to you? Who are you? What would you be doing? And we can often identify those things if we go back to what we were doing when we were 7, 8, 9, and 10 years old, before we looked up and realized that the world had expectations of us. So much of the work that I do is helping women do two things. One, go back to who were they at that age? What did they love? And how do we bring that piece of them back? And then also, how do we shed the identity of a baby princess to live as a royal queen?
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack. I'm freaking out.
So much.
I'm like, wait. I'm like, we have so much to discuss. Okay, we need to talk about the princess to queen vibes. We're going to get there. We need to talk about play, because that's a huge thing. But I'm like, ugh, like what's deeply resonating for me is, I'm going to share a personal share, is when I started doing this work, I ran towards it and was like, yes, yes, yes. And then I had space. And I became scared. And I think what scared me was I wanted it so desperately, but I wanted the outrageousness, because that's what I had when I originally did the play. Like the outrageousness of, this is who the fuck I am. Like, this is the wild and you may hate it, I don't care, but this is the wild expression of who I am. And it's funny because and we're going to talk about this, but when I was in community, it was celebrated. But, through a pandemic and through it's very isolated. It feels very scary to be outrageous. And I think that's what we're tapping on, right? Is like outrageousness, authenticity is the fucking medicine here. And yet it's so scary. Because it it taps into those old wounds of like, if I'm so outrageous, if I'm so myself, if I'm so me, will I lose my community? It's like those primal fears. Will I lose community? Will I not be loved? how do we create safety? How have you created safety? How have you made that a place where people can land?
That's such a beautiful question. And I think as a way shower myself, as someone who has always lived pretty off the cuff, pretty outrageously, I have built that life of outrageous living, outside of the box living, based on a very, very deep self trust that I've cultivated. So when I tap into that place that quiets the mind, goes in and feels for my truth, I say to myself, Amanda, this is your next right move. This is your North Star. This is who you were made to be. Because when I was not doing that, in the years that I was not doing that, I felt like a numbed out robot. I felt like I had just got in line and I was following the crowd and I was looking at the robot in front of me and we were all just walking along and everyone was for the most part saying the same things and looking the same. And everything seemed really copacetic and it was, nobody was rocking the boat. And that was beautiful in certain ways. But I will be honest, my soul was dying inside. I was hungering. I was ravenous to feel alive again, like I had in my early, time in my life, an earlier time in my life. I was ravenous, but I looked around and everything that I saw in suburbia, in motherhood and long-term marriage, in being an acceptable woman as the wife to a CEO, every layer of that muted me further and further and further. And I finally just realized that this literally is going to emotionally and mentally take me out of the game if I keep living this muted. I felt like it was a slow and painful death.
Oh my God, I want to cry already. I'm like, hi, we're 5 minutes in. I want to cry. Yeah. It's, why I'm getting emotional is because that's why I was called to this work. And that's why I am so passionate about doing this with my clients. I know you're the same, is like, I have this thing where I'm like, I don't want to die with the music inside of me.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Like, I do not want to die with the music inside of me. I want to, even if the note is fucked up and it's a little toned, and it's a little like, it's a discord. I want to say, I played it. It was a little weird and we moved on. Like, I want every note to be played and me to be like, I did it. I lived it. I felt it all. I felt the pleasure, the pain. I was alive. And so thank you for that. Like, that is it's so funny because we want it so desperately and people are so fucking, rightfully so, are so scared of it. Like, what will this mean if I'm this unleashed human? What will this mean if I'm fully myself? It's you're giving people a big, I hate this saying because it's such a coaching thing, but like permission slip, but like you are, in a way, you doing the work, you being an example is saying, oh my gosh, this person's still thriving. And they can still be themselves.
Yes.
Right.
And what happens is these women who come to work with me, within literally after the first session, I get messages of, I have never experienced, I feel like I stepped into a portal, into a world I didn't even know was something I could choose from. I have women come to me with like tears streaming down their cheeks. And they're like, Amanda, I feel like someone's resuscitated me back to life. I feel like the way I was living before, I could never even imagine going back because it was Groundhog Day, day in and day out. And the beauty is who the hell wrote the standards of what it means to be wild and crazy, outrageous versus not. And actually, who even cares? Like, isn't it the one that we're most attracted to at the party, at the venue, at the event, the one who is different? Like, it's becoming being outrageous or being walking on the edge kind of a style is really what I think we are hungering for deep, deep down. We are craving the people who have the audacity to live so freely and express themselves. And as a woman in midlife in particular, it is so frowned upon.
Yes.
It is so frowned upon.
Totally.
Because you are expected to just, be your cute little matronly self and sit off in the corner and leave the outrageousness for the young ones, leave the expression for the influencers, not for the midlife woman that no one's really actually interested in hearing from. And I am here just flipping tables on that narrative left and right, left and right, left and right.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so, what's so funny when we talked about this briefly before is like, that's fucking a crazy narrative that we sometimes buy into, which is wild. And I'm sure you're noticing it's getting younger and younger and younger. Like 30s now is like, okay, time to cut the bullshit, you know, like late 20s time to, and we're seeing this reflected in now 18-year-olds are getting Botox, 18-year-olds are getting fillers, you know, like, and there's no shade. I'm going to be completely transparent. I told you this, like, you know, I have had a little Botox here and there, you know, so, but I'm not going to be totally, you know, phony about it. But, and this is a sidebar. I had to really reckon, I want to put a little side portion in this. I had to reckon it because I know all of my friends were getting it. So it was like, fuck. I have to. And it was this anxiety voice. And so I said, okay, you cannot make this choice from this place. Like you cannot just rush and get it. So I said, okay, I'm going to sit on this for 6 months. And if this is something that I genuinely think would be fun, I want to do, fine, you have permission to do it. So even now I sit with it. Even I made an appointment and I'm like, I don't know yet. Like it's in my calendar, but I may say no, you know, like so it's something that I have to come to myself and instead of like, this is the standard, I have to do it. I'm like, does this feel like a yes within me or does this feel like a no? But with that being said, I don't want to be phony. I have to be transparent and own my shit.
Well, I love that you're in contemplation about it, right? Because what I think happens is for so many choices that we make in our lives, I don't even think they're choices. I think that there's this current that is going by and we jump in, we don't even question it. And we're just swept up in this current and we're way down the river. And we look up and we're like, wait a minute, how the hell did I even get here? Like my life has become unrecognizable. I just jumped in and started doing what everybody else was doing. And I never paused and questioned why am I doing this? Is this really, truly what I believe to be the truth about what it means to be a woman? And I think that, you know, I've had so many young girls, my daughter who is 19 and in college and my sons who are in their early 20s, they're all telling me that all of their female friends are getting Botox and they're saying things like, well, I'm getting it as, you know, as a preventative measure. And I think that's so fascinating because I just want to laugh and be like, preventative to what? Because you can't prevent aging, my love. We are all aging. And it is an act of holiness for me to look in the mirror and see the spiritual journey. I don't want to bypass one single second of it. Just like I didn't want to bypass my growing belly when I was pregnant. I didn't want to bypass the pain in my marriage when we were having ruptures. I don't want to bypass this spiritual process of aging. I want to see it all. I want to feel it all. I want to meet her every morning in the mirror. I want to be in reverence to her. I don't want to mute that experience, not for anything in the world.
And I want to jump on that. How powerful is that? Because it's like we already are so muted by the culture, by the patriarchy, you know, the toxic patriarchy, I should say. We're already so fucking muted. And it's just, like I feel the crunch that then in addition to already being so muted, we then continue to mute ourselves. It's such a sad, I feel the heaviness talking about it. You know, something I wanted to pull out before the Botox thing, I had to go on my Botox journey. You know, it's interesting because we had the midlife thing and it's becoming younger and younger and younger and younger. And it's like, it feels wild. Like when is it? And what I feel and what I see is we just are continuously and more deeply silencing and silencing and silencing and silencing. So when we talked, I was like, yes, let's talk about midlife because that's such a specific time. But we're seeing in the culture like, oh no, this is kind of regardless of the time. It's a tool to silence. Because if an 18-year-old's getting Botox, it's just to silence. You know, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does. There's different things that are happening, but you know what I mean? Like there's a different flavor. What's going on is just about silencing, making quiet, not showing up as your truth. And I'm like, so this conversation is for all. It's inclusive for all because we can all feel different ways that we're silenced and not allowing ourselves to be fully seen. And with that, this is a little different of a flavor of a question, but I'm genuinely curious because I have to fight for this every day of my life. Like, how do you touched upon this so beautifully, like you listen to your intuition and it's like, Amanda, follow this nugget, follow this nugget, follow this nugget. How do you cultivate this life, like, how do you keep this going? And like, how do you fight for your, I fight sounds aggressive, but like, how do you fight for your pleasure? Like, how do you,
Mm.
because you could, you know, this shit, you could easily burn this down and be like, fuck it. It's easier to, it's not like, cause my soul feels dead, but it's easier to just be, you know, with all the other, you know, it's, you have to constantly come back and come back and come back. So how do you come back to this version of you and have longevity with it?
Well, it's interesting because in the very beginning, when I made a conscious decision that I will not do Botox fillers, I will not be coloring my hair. When I made those decisions several years ago, for me, it was the very decision that was the hard part because it was like this defining moment. I was putting the stake in the ground and standing as an outlier to what everyone else around me was doing. So I actually bought a journal because I thought this is going to be so motherfucking hard. I'm going to like have to journal every day about this because I am really going against the grain. I'm going against what all my friends are doing, every woman around me, even my own mother. I am going to have to go against that to save myself. I won't keep betraying what I know to be real and true because what I feel is real and true is the beauty and the art of a woman who is aging, the wisdom and the glory and the power of a woman who is aging. That's what I want to be. I want to be it for me. I want to be it for my daughter. I want to be it for all the women who follow me and who are coming after me. I want to leave a different narrative. I don't want to be in the sea of faces that got muted. So to do so, I thought this is going to be a hell of a hard thing. Erica, I journaled for 2 days.
Wow.
And I don't know what happened, but I got this power that came over me. I was like, I didn't even need to anymore. I was so enthralled. I was so excited. I felt this energy and this excitement because I was living in my truth. I was really living for what mattered to me. And so what is tricky is I don't have to make it a practice to stay in it because it is just, I actually can't even fathom not. I can't even fathom not being this woman. It would be so counterintuitive to my natural state. But what is tricky is helping women even get into this place. Once you get women here into their depth and authenticity and realness, they never want to go back. But I don't spend my life or energy trying to convince anybody. I just lead my own life and women are attracted to it and want the freedom. So they step in. But it is the getting women to buying into why this would even be a good option, why you'd even want to do this, why you would even want to walk so differently in this world, because it feels like there's more to lose than there is to gain. But it's not until you start that you realize, oh my God, I was so deluded. I drank the Kool-Aid and believed that this was the way to be a woman in midlife, when in fact, this is where all of the magic lives. But if we tell women that everything they ever needed was within them, that is not going to help a capitalistic machine. We need women to stay so disenfranchised, to spend all of their money so we never, ever take over power, so that we use all of our resources to look a certain way rather than to build businesses or to start movements or revolutions. If we keep women scattered and nervous about the way they look all the time, spending all their time, all their money trying to look a certain way, it's a perfect system. It keeps men in power. It keeps women never feeling enough. And it is just a rat race. It is a train that you can never get off once you start. It's really hard.
I love what you said. I remember we talked, and then it's funny. I think like the day after, 2 days after I went to the hair salon, I was like, "Fuck," you know, because it was so funny. We talked, and you were like, you were saying how many hours are you dedicated to? Because you know, we're about beauty. I think how I want to frame this is, and I want you to talk about this too, is like, we're not saying fuck beauty. We're saying celebrate your inner beauty. Even you right now are looking like a fucking queen goddess. I'm like, I wish we could take a photo of you. You look fucking amazing. So I think there's a balance, right, of like celebrating our beauty. You have beautiful makeup on right now, a gorgeous necklace and beautiful outfit, like celebrating our beauty. But when does it become obsessive?
Right. And I'm accentuating what already is, right? So
Yes.
that's the difference. When we are talking about complete and total alterations, when we're talking about hiding, when we're talking about fixation in the mirror, that it's never enough, that it's never enough, where all of our time and all of our money, all of our resources are going towards that. That's to me when it becomes problematic. Because to me, the beauty, Erica, the art is in the individual, in the uniqueness, in the lines of the face and the spots on the skin and the way the skin changes. And I see it happening to my body. That to me is the art. That is the story. So I don't know where along the way we dropped this beautiful transition into midlife and beyond, and where we started to step into shame about being human.
Right. Right. And I'm laughing too, because in that conversation you were saying, like, what if we spent, because I am like, ooh, very guilty of this, like very religious, hair, nails, this, that. And you said, what if we use that time, to build companies, to build this? And again, I'm there. I think this is a very, a conversation that there's a middle ground. Like, if that's how you celebrate yourself,
Yes.
and that's how you nurture yourself, God bless. We both are endorsing that. Like, if you get your hair done once a week and that's how you celebrate yourself and feel good, fantastic. But what I was noticing with myself was it was obsessive. It wasn't from a place of, oh my gosh, Erica, this is a way to celebrate you. It was, you fucking have to do this or you're gonna be nothing. Or it's not like, oh, I'm gonna get my nails done because I feel alive. It's like, you have to. And I remember you saying, like, what would we do with that time and energy? And that's why so many males, that's why so many other humans that don't focus on this bypass us with building corporations and companies
Yes.
and this. And we're saying, why don't I, like, I just loved how you framed that to me. I was like, oh shit, like, I am spending an absurd amount of time that I
And
didn't
money.
even, and oh yeah. When I remember recently I was looking through my bills and I was like, this is kind of sad that a huge percentage of my stuff is towards upkeep and beauty and I'm like, oh, and again, it's a fine conversation of, if that's how you celebrate yourself, if that's how you take care of yourself, we endorse it, we sign it, let's do it. But when it becomes of, I have to because then I'm not enough, like for me, for a time, getting my hair and nails done didn't feel celebratory. It felt, you must. And so I think that's a part of the convo that I want to highlight for people, not from a place of must, but let's do it if it's a celebration. If that makes you feel like royalty, hallelujah. Right?
Right.
So thank you for that. I thank you for putting that into my head when we originally talked. That was a really helpful mind shift for me.
I love that. And really what you're saying is, like, when it becomes obsessive, when it becomes this thing that you feel obligated to do in exchange for love, in exchange for worthiness, that's where we have, I think, a deeper problem.
Agreed. Yes. Then I was like, ooh, and this doesn't feel authentic to the work I'm doing. Like, this doesn't feel authentic point blank, but especially to the work I'm doing. There's like a disconnected narrative of like, this makes no sense. This makes no sense that I am celebrating myself and people. And then I feel almost like enslaved that I have to do these practices. I have to, and it just did not match up. And so I've had to bring more conscious awareness to, why are you getting your hair done? Is it because it makes you feel beautiful, like you love it and you love seeing, dyeing your hair black or is it out of, I won't be loved if my grays pop through?
What a differentiator.
Right?
Yes.
It's an energy, or I'm going to go get my nails done because it's so fun and I want to put fun colors on there versus, oh, I won't be lovable if I don't.
Or I won't be feminine. That's what a lot of women tell me.
That's a huge...
Oh, I don't feel feminine.
Yes.
Where is it written that feminine has to do with fingernails? Isn't feminine the way that you feel, the way you move, the way you walk into a room, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you touch other people's hearts and souls? Isn't that feminine energy? Isn't that the most powerful currency? I think we need to start having what you and I are doing right now is we need to start having bigger conversations. I'm tired of feeling this need to tiptoe around for sake of somebody being offended or triggered. Because the truth is, if you hear something and you feel offended or triggered by it, it probably means that we touched on something that does actually feel true to you.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, underneath, the deal. It's like underneath our triggers, we wouldn't be triggered by it if there's truth to it for us personally. Otherwise, it would roll off our back. But I'm like, ooh, if we're triggered, there's some juice under there. There's some reason we want it. There's something we have to comb through. Like there's some magic in that underbelly. And I want to ask you same question, but different tone, texture, flavor is how do you keep the pleasure consistent? Like how, because that we could, you know, the deal, we could easily roll and be like, oh, I'm going to avoid this. So like, how do you keep the, you know, being magnetic? How do you keep the pleasure? How do you keep the play forefront of your brain?
I love this question so much. And it's very simple for me, to be honest with you.
Oh, good. Okay, great. I love that. I love that.
It's very simple. So when I wake up in the morning, before I turn on my phone, before I open my computer, before I connect with anybody in the outside world, I start with me. And so it's so simple. Every morning, it's probably no more than a total of 3 to 3.5 minutes. But I walk into my bathroom. I look at myself in the mirror with eye contact. I smile and I say, good morning, beautiful. I love you. You are a goddamn miracle. And I hold my gaze and I hold the power of those words as it washes through my nervous system, as it washes through my cells. I prepare myself for the day as I know there is a world out there that will try to tell me otherwise. So I start with me internally, and then I grab my playlist and I dance, depending on the flavor, depending on the mood. If I feel grief, remnants of grief about something I'm going through, I allow myself to be in that moment. If I'm feeling extra juiced up or celebratory, or I want to get myself a little bit more in a higher vibe because I know I've got some big production that day, sometimes it's really about sensual, slow, very sultry. So depending on what kind of a mood I'm wanting to cultivate that day, I put on that type of music. I have so many playlists dependent on a different mood, and I dance for myself in the mirror because I choose every morning that I will create the way this vessel will move about the world. So I put the energy in, I fill myself up before I allow the world to tell me. And then I keep a really, really tight, very squeaky clean energetically. And as far as my Instagram goes and who I follow, what I watch, what I consume, I do not consume anything that is about making women feel less beautiful, less worthy. Anything that's trying to sell me some toxic bullshit product, I don't follow any of that. I don't follow supermodels. I don't even follow women who are going gray as models because it's really hard to even find an authentic a woman who is aging as a model. It's like your hair may be gray, but you're getting all of the other things done. So to me, that is not in alignment with the kind of woman I want to be. So I keep a really squeaky clean, energetic field.
That is so, thank you for that. That's actually really helpful because I think the pleasure conversation can get very muddled. And so thank you for bringing it, because I remember, you know, when I first started doing this work, I'm like pleasure, 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 pleasure. And I'm also like energy, 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 energy. Because energy is a huge fucking component of this conversation. It's like energetic hygiene of like you said, like, like who's on my Instagram, or like, how am I showing up? Like, how is my world around me? And I think thank you for voicing that huge component that we don't talk about. Because here's the deal too. And I'm curious how you feel, like pleasure, 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 pleasure. Yes. But pleasure, at least for me, and I think for you too, is almost being like a magician. Like I'm at the DMV, or I'm at this situation that kind of sucks, and I'm going to cultivate fun and play. How do I do that? Well, guess what? You're using magic, but you're also using energy. So it makes sense that like we can have the surface pleasure conversation of like enjoy your kombucha out of a teacup, or stroke yourself with a boa. Like sure, we can have that conversation separate, but to be a master person that holds pleasure and play, your energetics need to be pretty fucking squeaky clean, because you are maneuvering, you're playing, manipulating is the wrong word, but you get with me. You're manipulating the situation to feel good, to find the joy, to find the nuggets. So your energy needs to be pretty solid. So that, thank you for voicing that, because I think in the pleasure world, we kind of miss that piece of the conversation. We kind of are like, anyway, like that might be too woo for people. So let's just keep it on the pink boas and the feathers, which is great. But I'm glad that you're like, hold on, this is a big piece of the conversation.
I love that you say this because the pink feathers and the boas and all of that is beautiful and fun. And I'm a fan of all of it. But I think when it's just that, it's a band-aid for the underlying way of functioning. And you may feel like you have to have excess, 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 when in fact, sometimes just the peace, the steadiness is the pleasure. Right? It's like being able to be at the long line at the DMV and being so at home in yourself is the pleasure. Being able to recognize like what a privilege it is to even have access to a car in a country where I get to stand in line to get my identification. What a privilege that is. Like, I think that there are different levels and ways of infusing pleasure. And I am more interested in the depths of my soul rooted deeply kind of pleasure.
And that's why your work is so potent. That's exactly why people are attracted to your work. It's funny, my friend and I, because, I'm always down to be in different communities, and we were doing this pleasure work together, and we said, oh, let's do this, this class. And both of us felt like about it. And she said, I'm noticing women are missing, and it's funny, it's the energetic, but there's something that's being missed, and we're bypassing trauma and saying, just put lingerie on and red lipstick and it'll bypass.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, you're right. Because we've done a lot of classes and courses together. And we went to this one, which again had great nuggets, but we're like, something's off. Something's off. And it was just people slapping on which God bless, slapping on red lipstick and putting on lingerie. And great, there's beauty to it. There is an energy to it. But she's like, we're not getting to the meat. Like there's something we are missing. And again, why your work is so genuine is you can writhe around on the floor in lingerie and I'd be like, God bless. But to you, it's I'm deeply home within myself. I'm deeply embodied. I'm deeply alive. Like that is why your work is so attractive and potent. It's real versus the glossy, Instagrammable kombucha out of kombucha out of a teacup in lingerie. Like you can still do that, but where is the meat to it? Where is the aliveness, magic alive in your body? So that's why you're so fucking amazing and magnetic, because you're doing the damn thing.
Thank you for saying that, Erica. And I do think that this work is it is, and that's what women say to me. They're like, Amanda, when I read the sales page and stepped in, I couldn't have imagined the transformation on such an ancestral and cellular level over these 6 months. And I think, how could you even write that in a sales page? How could you? And I also think that sometimes trying to put words to it or explain it does such a disservice. It's really such an experience that helps women build the most gorgeous, beautiful foundation that does, I just walked women through a piece as we opened the container. We're like 2 weeks into the 6-month journey. And we did a piece around some ancestral stuff. And one woman in particular was saying, I don't understand why we have to look at the past. I thought this work was forward facing. And I helped her and the group understand that without knowing where you've come from, you will continue to replicate you'll get those same unsatisfying results going forward if we don't understand why you did the things you did. And the piece about the ancestral work is understanding what we've carried, what we've brought along into our lineage from our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers, our mothers. And if we don't ever take a moment to pause and examine the beautiful women that came before us, whether we agree or disagree with the way they chose to live with their limited resources, it is imperative that we begin there, that we begin at the beginning. Because when we were in utero, we experienced everything our biological mom experienced. Every time her heart broke, every time she was abused, every time she felt less than, every time she felt dismissed or gaslit, every time our little nervous systems inside of her body felt it too. And if we don't understand the women that carried us, we will forever have a sense of not fully inhabiting our bodies, because there are times you'll be going through life feeling like, gosh, I keep coming back to this thing, this feeling. Why does it feel so hard? Why does it feel so heavy? Because often it's not fully ours. We are carrying stuff from our lineage before us. And so I do think it's so important to not just do the let's dance around with the feathers and let's put on the glittery eyeshadow. Wow, that is so fun. And I love all of that. I have found that retreats that I've had clients at least share with me that those retreats, those have like a flash in the pan kind of fun moment, a buzz. It's like, oh, that was a fun girls getaway. And I say to women before they come to my retreats, I want you to be very clear. This is not a girls' weekend. This is deep, profound, sacred work that will change you from the inside out. You will be unrecognizable to yourself when you leave my retreat in the most beautiful way, the part of you you've been longing for. And so I am just a stand for doing the work that is deep, but also sexy and fun at the same time.
Yeah, thank you for voicing that, because for me, I'm going to talk about myself for a second because it deeply resonates, but also for clients, when I did workshops and retreats like that, it's actually, it was beautiful in the moment, but the afterblow was shame. Because it was so sparkly and fun, and I had a taste of it, and wow, like feathers and boas and glittery makeup and blah, like I felt alive, and then I had no tools to sustain myself. And you know what happened next? Shame. I'm wrong. Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I can't sustain this. And I had a very tumultuous, that's why I've been doing this work for fucking years, because I was like, I cannot hold space for people until I am right with this. And so I had to really get right at that. And so thank you for voicing that. It is a sparkly moment, but like, how do we create longevity around that and actual real holding it? And my clients have felt that too, whether it's been a retreat or whether it's been a time in their life where they were in their summer of their life, where they were sparkly and magnetic, and then they have shame of, why am I not there? Why am I not there? And so thank you for voicing that. And something I did want to talk to you about, so I'm so grateful you brought it up, was the ancestral lineage conversation. And I remember the first retreat, did a shit ton of retreats, but the one that like got me into this work deeply, I remember I was devastated, which is so funny because you're in a room of all happy people. And I was devastated, and I said, my grandma never had even a lick of this. Just a lick of this. And when I forget sometimes why the fuck I do this work, why isn't the emails working and why isn't the podcast fucking working, or all the bullshit, we have to remember, especially for us that do this work, of like, so many people in our lineage didn't even have the privilege or the access to a dot of this work. And I'm so grateful that you voiced that. And it's funny, I actually had a client before we got on, and we were talking about how her ancestral cultural lineage affects how she shows up in dating and love. And she's like, oh my gosh, this makes sense that like ancestrally, this makes sense that it's impacting how I'm showing up for love, which we don't think about. So thank you for voicing the importance of that. And I think that it's very bypassy when it's just like rainbows and glitter, love and light. It's like, yeah, God bless. We want to be in that space, and we have to be open enough to look at the full picture.
Absolutely. There's a time and place for the rainbows, and there's a time and place for the ancestral work. And it's so beautiful. And I love what you said. Like, this is one of the things I say to my clients is that this work feels bigger than me. This work is for the women in Afghanistan who can't and will never be able to have access to this. This is for my grandmothers who were both abused. This is for women who did not have a voice. Yes, this work is for me and for my clients and for the future, but it is equally for the past and for the women who could not. I hold that. I think that in the days and the moments where I think, oh my gosh, here we go again. It is because of my grandmothers that I get up and keep doing this, because it literally breaks my heart to think of how they lived every day of their lives. And I do this in honor of them.
I love that. I'm like, oh, it's more tears. More tears. We have to talk about this because this is a huge portion, and we touched upon this throughout the whole conversation, but can you talk to us about your transition from You could put it in different ways. Princess to queen, maiden to, to mother, to like what, talk to us about like the princess energy to the regal queen energy. Can you talk to us about, or like inner child to queen, like, can you talk to us about that journey, that transition, and what helped you feel safe and all the things? And we touched upon it, but is there anything else you want to add about stepping into queendom, stepping into royalty?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of times when clients come to me, they are experiencing a less than ideal relationship, whether it's with their partner, their lover, their parents, their children, their place of work, even with their own bodies, with their own self-love and self-trust, right? They're feeling some kind of a rub, and they come to me because they want that rub. They want a solution to the rub. And then when we first examine the ways in which they are functioning, coping, or dealing with the situation, 9 times out of 10, it is coming from princess energy, victim-y energy of he does this, or they don't listen, or they don't understand, or right. So a lot of looking at how they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard. So it's kind of like the Snow White just waiting, to like be kissed so that all of her problems get saved. And so the work that we do is transitioning and looking at how has staying in that baby princess energy, how has that actually served you? And we always find ways that it has served them. We always find ways, 9 times out of 10, the biggest way it serves is it keeps you from ever having to be fully vulnerable and really doing the intimacy work. But to step into queendom requires a depth of intimacy that we are not taught as women, that requires an ability to hold on to ourselves regardless of the response from the other person. So a lot of the work is helping them transition out of the victim or needing to be rescued energy, little girl energy, and stepping into how to own the queen, how to be the woman who's leading herself so that others can get on the path and walk next to her. And I talk a lot to women about leading their partners, leading their children, leading their communities, leading their families. I feel that it is such a privilege and honor to be the matriarch, to be the woman who leads my family rather than sitting back waiting for my husband to lead our family. He leads our family in other ways. And we've got this beautiful chemistry after 26 years of the ways in which he leads as a king. And I right next to him, not one fucking step behind him, nor ahead of him, right next to him in step, lead as the queen, as the matriarch. And so we have these roles that are so beautiful and exquisite for our children, for our community, for our extended families to be, have the privilege of being a part of. And so I help women transition into, we do one behavior at a time, one reaction, one conversation at a time. This is baby princess energy, and here's how a queen would handle it. Go back and try this as a queen. And then what happens very quickly is their life starts to come into this like place that feels so delicious that then overlaying queen energy into every relationship, every conversation, even your self-love and trust becomes the most obvious choice.
Yes. When you have a taste of it, why would you want to go back?
Oh, the other feels like a beggar's consciousness. Like you're going around begging someone to notice you, begging someone to like you, begging someone to praise you. And when you're a queen, you're doing all of it for yourself. Like I do in the morning before I wake up. I don't need it from anyone. Is it nice if my husband or somebody else compliments or says something? Sure. It's a great little sprinkle on the cake, but I put the icing on every single morning. I'm the one who nourishes myself. So yes. I'm not dependent on others needing to ever.
Oh my God, that is so. Oh my God, it's so good. I want to ask briefly before we wrap. There's a few things before we wrap. I want to ask about tips and tricks because we have to. Because people are probably listening to this conversation like, holy shit, what next? But before that, I want to voice really briefly, and we could spend just a second on this, is obviously we're in the same worlds. And I was, we talked, and then, I saw you live your life, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Amanda in sisterhood doing work. We're both in sisterhood and community, doing your work in community. And how healing it was. And I'm saying this, first of all, community, sisterhood, siblinghood as friendship to cheer each other on, all of that great stuff. But what I was seeing from you, which is what I want to highlight, is actually your work. And instead of being in competitive energy of like, I don't want to be taken, picture of with this person, we do similar work, you were celebrating each other. Can you briefly talk? I just think that's so, for us it's normal, because we're in this world, so we're like, yay. But for other people it might be like, no, 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 like that's the competitive feels and the scarcity stories. Can you talk about briefly your relationship to sisterhood, siblinghood, community being a healing factor in your life, point A, but point B, how has that affected your business? And because that's the one that people are like, I could do it for healing, but for business, do I want to be, next to my competitors,
Absolutely. Well, I think for myself personally, as a human, as a woman, it has been so nurturing and so healing because I grew up with this belief system. You can't trust other women. They will take from you. There are only so many seats at the table. And when I started, like I said earlier in this conversation, when I started to examine belief systems, like, is that actually mine or have I inherited that? That belief system I inherited from my family, that you could not trust other women. So I decided, you know what, fuck that. I'm going to try this out for myself. I actually believe differently. I believe better of women. I believe that we haven't been necessarily shown an alternate way of being together in sisterhood. I'm going to try this out. And so for me, it has been one of the elixirs of my life. I actually can't fathom life without sisterhood. I really can't. And I also keep very exquisite sisterhoods, like the most gorgeous reciprocal energy. I will not be a part of a sisterhood that for one moment makes me feel like shit, that makes me feel less than, that makes me feel trampled. I am only engaging in the most gorgeous reciprocal relationships. It doesn't mean that there aren't ruptures. It doesn't mean there aren't hard conversations, but it means that we are always coming back to what is good for the collective, what is good for both of us, you and me. And if I can't be in relationship to women who are constantly solving for how does this work for both of us, I'll take a pass on it. So that's one. And also I think for me in business, I am not interested in being the only one doing this work. It's a lonely motherfucking place to be. And I also believe that nothing actually changes if there's a handful of women doing this work. It is when we are linked arm in arm that we are all rising together. And it's a really beautiful catchphrase that so many people like to say. It's like, oh, we're all in this together. I've seen very few do it and do it well. And the ones that I do see do it well, I get very close to, because that's the kind of leadership I want to be a part of. I want to be in rooms with women who are not afraid to have the spotlight shining on somebody else. I want to be in rooms with women who say, oh, you think you like the work I'm doing? Come here. You've got to meet her. She will blow your mind. That's the only space I want to keep, is with women who are constantly lifting each other, because nothing changes collectively for women until there are hundreds of thousands of us supporting one another.
Yes, thank you. That is, and again, it's the same feeling, like I felt it too, had the sisterhood wounds and all that. And once you jump into a healthy, aligned community, you're like, I can't fucking go backwards. Like I can't, how was I doing this on my own for years?
Right. And so many women are.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's an important message for people that are listening. Like, I want that. I think this is inspiring that you can have that. It is available for you. It is possible for you. And like you said, we need other people in this. We need more leaders, more people, whether you do this work or not, just to be in this community, having the same language, having these deep conversations. Like, it's even that we are in a way, we're in an echo chamber because we're in this world, but in reality, this conversation isn't happening that often.
No, and the beauty is, and no one who works, really, I wouldn't say no one, but most women who come to work with me are not in the coaching industry. They are quote unquote typical women in the world. And so we do all of this excavation around sisterhood wounds and then rewrite what it looks like. We write new stories and new narratives. And then the beauty of these 6-month masterminds is when they're over, these women all then have each other, this exquisite sisterhood that we build that is a completely new way, so much so that most of them can't go back to their old friendships any longer because they were functioning in those relationships at such a subpar standard.
Yes. Oh, it's so good. I'm so annoyed because I always say this, but like I did not look at my notes once because I genuinely could jam out with you for hours. I'm like, God damn it. Like we have so much more to talk about. So definitely we have to do a part two at one point, but I want to hear where people can find you, be in your communities. But before we do, is there anything I want you to feel like you have the floor? Is there anything that you're like, Erica, I really want the listeners to hear this? Like, is there any other nugget or something? And there might not be, but is there anything else that you really want to share, say that feels like on the top of your mind or top of your heart that you'd love to express?
Yes, I would say that a community, a world, a culture, a person that makes you feel that you are only worthy, only beautiful if you do X, Y, or Z is one to walk away from. So if you are in relationship to somebody who's telling you, will you be so much prettier 10 pounds later? It would be so amazing if you got your ass a little bit more toned. It would be so amazing if your lips were fuller. Anybody who is languaging around you in that way, I would say grab your things and run, because that is not love. That is not connection. That they're not seeing the truth of who you are. And when women really shine, when they really are radiant, it is never because of an external thing they've plastered on. It is always because their soul and their light is shining out through every pore, through every piece of skin on their body. That is the radiance in the work that I really want women to reach for, not anything that has to plaster over their already natural beauty and radiance.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you. I have to add this, and I think I've added this before, but I have to tell you this because I think you'll be like, I get this so deeply. Is I was doing this work for many years. I was volunteering in different spots, and I remember I was working with a well-known woman in this community, and people would ask me, and I think I've said this in the podcast before, what did she eat for lunch? Where did she get that ring? Where did she get her that outfit? And it deeply disturbed me because I'm like, wait, I get it, but we're missing the point. So I'd have women grab me and say, where did she get her that ring? Oh my gosh, where did she get that dress? Not from a place of like, oh, I love that ring. I love that dress. It's fabulous. They felt if I ate her diet, if I got the ring she got, if I got the dress she got, I'd have the magic. And I'm like, I've seen this woman wear, sweats, and it's just, she radiates this because she radiates this. But sometimes when we're new to this, we buy into the illusion. And I did this too with, especially with the Tantra world. I'm like, if I get the jumpsuit, if I get the bodysuit, or if I, if I get the bodysuit, if I get the nose ring, the hoop nose ring, if even now we're wearing kimono, if I get the silk kimono, I'm going to feel it. I'm going to be in. And it's like, sure, that does something for you energetically. But there's this weird illusion that we have. If I buy the silk kimono, if I have the sexy Tantra bodysuit, if I wear that Cartier bracelet, if I do that, I'm going to feel it. And it's like, guess what? You could have those things because you could have those things, but you hit it. It's the magic inside.
9 times out of 10. Because I will tell you firsthand, I have all the things. And
yep, same. I love the things. I love the fucking things. I love the things.
But the things, honestly, are just literal things if I feel like ass inside.
Yes. Yes. So bada bing, bada boom. If you do the work, if you do the magic, and then you add the silk kimono, holy fucking shit. You know what I mean?
You're taking off to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, if you're doing the work, if you're feeling alive and radiant, and then you add, the Tantra, the holy, the Tantra bodysuit, you are flying high. So thank you for piecing that together, because sometimes there's a little bit of a swarmy. So thank you for having that with us. So we have to know where we can find you. Where can we be in your world? How can we find you? How can we listen to your podcast? Tell us all the things.
Yes, thank you so much, Erica. So on Instagram, I am at Revolutionizing Midlife. My Facebook page, same thing, Revolutionizing Midlife. And then if you're a woman 40 over, I have a private Facebook page, again, Revolutionizing Midlife by Amanda Hanson. And my website is amandahanson.com. And my podcast is under the same name, Revolutionizing Midlife. I tried to keep it as simple as possible, same branding everywhere. So it just is easier and easier to find me.
That's amazing. I'm like, God damn, we have so much to talk about, but thank you. This is the first of many conversations. I really appreciate you coming on, and beyond you coming on, I really appreciate you doing this fucking work, and I'm grateful to know you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. It's really been a pleasure for me to be here. I really, really, really thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.